PKR, de facto Anwar Ibrahim has said that if he comes to power, he will reduce the oil prices. Do you think that is a wise move, or what do you think is possible?
I have not been following things here. I don't know how he intends to reduce the fuel price. Maybe he will do the same thing as Ban Ki-moon and talk to King Abdullah and persuade him to increase the Saudi output, and that will reduce the price of fuel. There are many ways of reducing the price of fuel, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be entirely due to the subsidy. But I think the more important question here is the fact that Petronas has long been recognized as one of the better run state petroleum companies in the world, and is estimated to have accumulated assets, surpluses over the years of well over $500 billion. We're talking about well over 500 billion. And at the same time, the actual assets which are attributed to the company are significantly less than that, probably in the region of about 10%. I think one has to, it makes much more sense to have much more transparency and accountability in this regard. This is the case in many parts of the world, and there's a great sense about the need for transparency, especially in extractive industries, generally speaking. We already failed miserably with deforestation, and I think although this is, petroleum production has been significant for well over 3 decades now, it's not too late to make amends for the previous, and this will reduce the kinds of abuses which are attributed to the use of Petronas funds and so on and so forth. I'm not suggesting that Petronas is defrauding the government in any way. That's not the issue. The issue is rather, how those funds are being deployed. Yes.
So you are in favor of saying that yes, the price of the pump price should not be overly subsidized in terms of by the government putting subsidies into it, but that in fact the investment should be made into public transport and alternatives, and the other ways of actually bringing the price of petrol down.
I think the public transport issue is not just a question of investments. It's a question of appropriate regulation to incentivize greater use of public transportation, to make both on the supply side as well as on the demand side. You need to have those facilities. I mean, right now, for example, we have an LRT system in Kuala Lumpur which is very poorly linked. I mean, the three systems are not properly well linked. There are a lot of the elements which are dysfunctional. The feeder system doesn't work very well, and there are a lot of other, public transport vehicles are stuck in traffic jams as much as private. So there's no real incentive to use a public transport system. You can privilege public transport vehicles in ways which will motivate people to use much more public transport.
Like special lanes and things like that.
I mean, it exists in, say, the federal highway and so on, but not enough. There's not enough of that.
Okay.
Basically, you predicted once in 2004, if the opposition lost badly, then it would be obliterated. But look at the new political scenario. What are your thoughts on the way that Anwar has formed this coalition with the AP and us to challenge Barisan?
Well, I think what happened in the previous election meant basically that there was very little prospect of the opposition rebuilding itself, and if not for the chain of events which have happened with Anwar's release and return from abroad, I think that's actually quite important. He spent a bit too long after his release, being abroad, but the fact that he came back and he was crucial in a way to the the kind of cooperation which has emerged among the opposition. That was, as you can remember, not about to happen, certainly not after the 2004 election. I think there have been many other factors which have contributed to the outcome. I think, for example, the Indian community used to be to support the Barisan Nasional more strongly than any other ethnic community, and the fact that they have been so severely alienated in the interim, I think, was a very, very crucial factor in the swing away from the Barisan. Of course, both Chinese as well as Malays were disaffected by various other factors as well, and all that certainly did help, and the perception that the government was not delivering on some of its earlier promises also did help. The fact that both PAS and the DAP were willing to compromise on what seemed to be increasingly polarized positions probably did help them as well. And it still remains to be seen whether this March 8th was a flash in the pan, or whether it can be sustained. The effort to reform and strengthen the opposition probably has just begun. Whether or not it will actually go through remains to be seen. I mean, there has to be delivery on electoral promises. There has to be a greater sense of professionalism among the politicians. The quality of public discourse has to be improved. The role of the media has to be loosened up. I'm told that the media has changed radically. Not only the so-called alternative media, which apparently was very important in the run-up to the elections, but even the mainstream media has had to reinvent itself to survive. So a lot of all this will have a tremendous impact. I think much of the attention has been on the print media and the web media. I'm not sure what the effect has been on the broadcast media. But if the broadcast media, which has a huge impact, also changes, then I think we might open up to have a much more open society. How the electoral constituencies change, electoral law changes, and freedoms of assembly and so on and so forth, how much that will be expanded and so on and so forth. And of course, there's a lot of contention within the ruling coalition as well, the Barisan Nasional and so on and so forth, the component parties. How all that plays out is going to make a huge difference. And I think one challenge which people have not paid enough attention to is the future of federalism, the relationship between the federal government and the state governments. Even though they are from rival coalitions, I think there will be the need to begin to cooperate at least on specific issues of the public interest, rather than the kind. It was quite possible to isolate, for example, the government of Kelantan or the government of Terengganu and so on and so forth. But if that kind of antagonistic relationship continues, I think that will also affect dynamics. And I think for people in Peninsular Malaysia especially, the whole relationship to Sabah and Sarawak and the nature of politics in Sabah and Sarawak has to come under, very few people actually think in Peninsular Malaysia actually think very seriously about Sabah and Sarawak, and some people say vice versa, and this I think will necessarily have to change.